My name is Chikafujilisa. Your favorite word Meishi. Welcome to another episode of Shear Noise. I'm here with Faye from Meishi Smile. How are you doing?
Good. Very interesting to be within this sort of setting.
I know. How does it feel to be talking to like an anime girl and stuff?
It feels realer than real. That's,
wow.
We'll probably get into that much more.
Definitely. Well, thank you for coming and hanging out with me. I have a couple of questions for you today, so I hope you don't mind answering them for me. I've been a fan of yours for like almost 10 years now, so I'm very, very excited to be talking to you today. My first question for you is, where did the name of Meishi Smile come from?
Yeah, so there's sort of the iteration I had of it when I first conceived it and what I sort of realized more as time went on. But the original intention was to basically create a contrasting sort of element of words. You know, this is almost so sounds vaporwave us. It's a very contradictory sense of what was described as like a formality masquerading as an emotion, say transactional process of relationships. So it's taking the word smile, and the Meishi is a Japanese word which means like a business card exchange out of a business card. So combining that with smile was, solidifying that the contradictory elements of a falsification.
Oh, I see. So almost like transactional type of like vibe then?
Yeah, that's correct. And as time went on, I was able to understand that more, embedded within the project itself, especially through Marx. When he talks, for example, Das Kapital about the commodity, the cell phone capitalism. So I feel like as time went on, it sort of reiterated what I had intuitively known. And I think that's kind of the basis of the project itself. And as an artist, throughout time, being able to sort of more factually reason the process of what was just sort of felt at first.
Oh, okay, for sure. I mean, thank you for the most insane description of that. My first album for you was Lust. That was 10 years ago now. You just had your anniversary for that recently. I wanted to ask, does that album carry any weight in terms of what you envisioned for Meishi Smile as a concept?
Yeah, it's something that I sort of distanced myself from at first because I wasn't really sure what the implications of releasing that album were. Once an artist releases something out to the world, it's not really theirs anymore, so to speak. This goes back all the way to even, what are well-known media essays, such as, the death of the artist or the author, the rest of the world to situate what that means. Then there's a historical context. You can never really understand before putting out anything, a piece of art, a piece of theory, whatever, how it's going to affect the world, or to change things around you. You put it out, and then history sort of explained that process. So I feel like there's understanding now, conceptually and more politically developed, sort of understanding where my music is coming from. It doesn't matter what an artist says, what they like music, it more so matters how that is actually interpreted on mass level. So I am trying to understand now, especially as a music culture, as sort of, I don't want to say recycle in the sense that that's the exact same. I recently started listening to some more new music, such as a Nina Girachi. I feel like there is sort of a reactionary element looking at music. That is very nostalgia, returning to the Y2K, etc. During a time where there was very noticeable political turmoil that was faced in the present and not with an escapist sense. It sort of made me want to create something, again, that was rooted perhaps on Meishi started with us, but contextualizing that to, the current moment. So with the Lust, I feel like retroactively, so to speak, hearing how people resonated with it in that specific sort of time within the internet, that label culture, visual music, etc. I was able to situate it more so within the context of Meishi Smile, the sort of contradictory elements. So there's that aspect of it, sort of a wider sort of general societal, whatever you want to call it. And the individual sense too of understanding my relation to gender and sexuality, etc. And then lust was also this aspect, what I've described as a sort of a lust for life, so to speak. The sort of aspect, the isolation of the atomized individual, struggling to come to terms with their own sort of identity first, before prior being able to break out and situating themselves to, like, as you say, totality of things.
That's really awesome. I had no clue it went that deep. Like how you said it separates from the artist when you like put it out there. I was just like, damn, this sounds really good. So like knowing that it means it had like weight at a certain point in your life. And I have always said this, like I think of music as kind of a time capsule. Even though it's so separate from you now, like with all of the time that's passed in between, I still think that like, you know, that weight that you give it is still there. We also discuss and talk about the things that we experienced going through like net label culture at the same time. Shout out Orchid Tapes. We're both on the internet a lot, and a lot of our fan bases are on the internet. So what would be your like internet I made it moment?
Yeah, so I think it's questionable if I ever made it in that context. So I think, you know, being able to create something that felt very, you know, isolated in a sense, and then being able to bring it out into some sort of manifestation of, you know, interacting with people and learn. I always wanted to be more like you actually, where it's like I, you know, these layers of sort of obfuscation to myself. And going off of that, it's like, I think I was within a certain cultural period where it felt important, so to speak, for me to be like, well, I am this sort of person of this identity, whatever. And that there was maybe a small progressive element. So I felt like, oh, well, I'm going to show my face. So yeah.
That's so rad. Honestly, I love how detailed you get with your responses with these things. I wanted to ask too, playing abroad is something that I really strive for. I think that would be like my I rated moment. I played a lot of shows here in the US. I think as a VTuber, everybody wants to at some point play a show in Japan. So I wanted to ask about how you felt about the scene there when you did play, because it was definitely a different time. Remind me the year that you played?
I was in 2014.
Yeah, so very different vibes then. Like, how would you compare it to like shows or like performances or like whatever you've done more recently, especially with like being abroad and stuff?
Yeah, so I think it'd be easiest to go off of that. And I had just a few months ago played what was Maltina's 20th anniversary. And, there's an aspect of it that Maltina, at least in my interpretation, is still, looked up to. And
yeah, I love that.
Obviously, the climate has changed, and this tomato he found their Maltina themselves, and all music is internet music now. And it didn't really feel like a sense of nostalgia as much as it was trying to embrace the younger generation, dealing with the reverberations of the internet culture still and what that looks like, for better for worse. With that show, it didn't feel like, oh, I am somebody who was doing this anniversary. And it felt more so like, well, this is Maltina and what they represent. Just moving forward in general. And so it seemed like another huge topic, this nostalgia itself as a reaction form, especially politics. But with Maltina, as far as like the surface itself, the music and the technical aspects of it still very much feel like the effort I've seen in tomorrow always sounds like a pulse and what's new. I hear from fans that he'll they'll just show up to most random shows and whether on Tokyo, just a few people, whatever, and like the tomato will be there. Like he is just like in tune with everything. So I feel like the aspect of him are really admired.
That's so awesome. Yeah, no, one of the coolest experience I had last time I was in Japan is I got introduced to Moguro, which is like an underground electronic like club scene thing, and they do all like AMV, anime, like J-pop, like remix stuff, like DJ stuff, and I thought that was so cool. Okay, I only have just a little bit left for you, so don't trip. Right now, in your current rotation, who's in your top 5 most listened to artists?
Yeah. I think even if I don't listen to these artists all the time, I can think of 5 artists who are sort of very embedded in what I do. The first would definitely be the radio department. I would say another artist definitely Darren Gray. Another one would be the early career of Yasaka Mikado, the producer, Perfume Capsule. Another one would be Supercon. It was a sort of convergence of the J-pop elements, the shooters, and electronic elements. I guess I picked one. I'm not really sure, but I don't think this is exactly stood up on my music yet. But Suzumu, Kota, and this ambient work. So everyone names Sakura is best for.
Rad. Well, this is the end of our interview. If you have anything to share or shout out or, you know, spew into the universe or the internet, the floor is yours.
Shout out to Palestine. Free Palestine. Gotta insert it into every single moment so it reminds people that they are not disconnected from the rest of social reality and that there are real struggles happening right now, especially the people who are in the Philippines and in India especially. I'm like that meme where it says like, I'm not gonna get political. I'm not like too generous to get political, but I don't always shit to get political.
I think as a whole, music is inherently political, so you are free to let it rip. And where can people find you online?
You can find our shit on like Soul Secret. I mean, if you're like a moral Samaritan or believe in that sort of concept, you could like buy the records on my fan cap or whatever. That's always nice, you know, support my staying alive.
Yeah, definitely support Meishi Smile. Well, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me. And then once again, thank you all who have watched. This is another episode of Sheer Noise, and I'm your host, chikafujilisa. Bye guys!